Coming up next, we are going to have Rob Bell and Andre Langlois come up and talk about the work that they've been doing with Mississippi Lake Plan. And as a brief introduction for those speakers, and you've already heard a little bit about the many things Rob does, but Rob has served on the board of the Mississippi Lakes Association since 2014, first as vice president, then as president. He chaired Lake Plan Committee and then implemented the committee's plan in 2016. He has since been heavily involved in all aspects of the MLA operations, including serving on numerous committees and website administration, phoning me, getting information on how the monitoring program is going, how the invasive species programs are going, and how we can further partner and find success. So, find those people, reach out to them, give them jobs. It is basically what he has done. Andre, I don't know Andre quite as well as I do Rob, but Andre has served on the board of the Mississippi Lakes Association also since the early mid-2000s in 2014 as secretary, and then as interim vice president and interim treasurer. I dare to ask, how long interim has lasted?
A year or two.
A year or two. He was a member of the Lake Plan Committee in the 2013 to 2015 range and the implementation committee thereafter. He has since participated in a wide range of MLA activities, including developing and maintaining the website, very crucial for reaching out to your people, and serving on the voting committee. So please welcome Rob and Andre.
It doesn't fit in there.
It doesn't fit, you gotta hold it.
That's why we just put that down. Can you put
You want to
Yep.
vote for it? No, just kidding. Oh dear. Well, thank you very much for that introduction, and thank you to everyone who came today. That's awesome, and thank you to the organizers for all the hard work you do. It's always a pleasure to come to Lake Links, and we all feel it's kind of like a group therapy session for the people that love our lakes, and because it's you see a lot of complacency, and it's great to I feel reinvigorated, so, and winning the award didn't hurt either. Okay, I'm going to start off with a little introduction and talk about after purchasing a waterfront property on Mississippi Lake in 2007, I attended a Mississippi Lakes Association AGM in 2011, where we were addressed by a Watersheds employee, not Melissa, who was pitching a lake plan to our association. In a discussion afterwards, I attempted to volunteer in the lake planning effort, and I was told that at present, there was no one to take volunteer information. I would be volunteer number 1. I ended up giving my name, I think, to Melissa, who I think organized the first Lake Plan Committee meeting, and she was the MLA Lake Steward at the time, if I have my history right. We did have a few other volunteers show up, and I believe Andre was one of them. The rest, as they say, is history. My journey into the world of lake associations and lake plans had begun. Having had experiences with the influence that an urban community association can have, my initial inspiration for the lake plan effort was to encourage and activate a Mississippi lake community. As lakefront owners, we all share similar hopes and fears. However, Mississippi Lake exists in the shadow of the urban communities of Carleton Place, Perth, and Ottawa. In many ways, it is taken for granted and overlooked as the outstanding natural wonder that it is. Can the process of building a lake plan help inspire a community and help to protect this irreplaceable gem? Next slide, please. Today we will touch on these topics to share our journey in the creation of the MLA Lake Plan, implementation of it, and then the review, which occurred in 2021, 6 years after the creation. I think you're up.
Well, thank you very much. With the number of people in the audience who already have a plan and those who are bought into the whole idea, we will give you an idea of how we went through the thing and the lessons learned and all that. But first is why we want to get to our plan. You've heard this before, and we'll just reiterate it. The purpose, in no particular order, but the idea is that if you've got 1,200 people around the lake, 1,200 properties around the lake like we do, and you haven't really got any focus on what you want to do, any direction's good enough, or maybe no direction's good. So one of the main purposes of building a plan is let's sort out what we want to do as a group. And once you've sorted out your priorities and all that, at least you've got some impetus to take action or to bring people on board to help you carry out those actions. So I think taking action and getting the idea of what you're trying to do for your lake is one of the biggest things centered around whether it's on paper or actually formally identify what your plan is. What are the values on the lake? Well, everybody's going to have their own ideas, whether they want to fish or they hunt or canoe or they just want to see sunsets. Let's get an idea what the values are, and let's collate a set of actions to go along with that. We, as lake associations, don't have regulatory authority. You can't pass laws. You can hopefully get other people to pass laws to do things. But your main interest is to educate, inform first your own community, but anybody else who's visiting your lake to make sure they understand the importance and the values of that lake. So those are the reasons actually to formalize a plan. And as we talked about, when you're working with the MVCA or Conservation Authority or a municipality, are you advocating for a group of 5 or 6 people who are passionately involved with the lake, or are you talking on behalf of everybody on the lake? 2, 3, 4, 500 people. And you're using your platform as the voice for them. You get a lot more credibility if you sorted out what plan you want to do and where you want to go. Next slide, please. Our particular interest for the MLA is, as you've seen, big watershed. We're here, and although there's some big lakes up here, there's very few population up here. This is a fairly, I call it an urban lake with Carlton Place in the northeast, and a fairly sizable lake with all this stuff, water, pollution, whatever else, coming downstream goes through us and out to the Ottawa River. And of course, whoever's downstream of us too needs to understand what's going on with the lake as well, and the river. So our particular interest after we got at the Watersheds, Center for Sustainable Watersheds was the previous name, but we got a lot of impetus from them. And once we started looking at our plan, we said, yeah, that makes sense to have a plan for where we are in this world. More particularly, for the next slide, okay, the colors won't come out as well, but it's the Mississippi Lake, but our name is Mississippi Lakes Association. 4 little lakes. There's first lake here, second lake, the Narrows, and the big lake. The water comes in here from west through Innisfil, out through Carlton Place, it's just off the map up here, and off to the Ottawa River. So 4 lakes, 4 different types of topography. Some people in this area are more concerned with weeds or aquatic vegetation. Some people down here are concerned with fast speedboats and noises, because going back, John's Marine is the only real commercial marina on the lake. There's a couple of big resort areas down here. This area is more highland, and so even though there's flooding in Mississippi Lake, these guys are not in too bad a shape. These guys over here, it's a different story. So lots and lots of different ideas and values and objectives about people on the lake. 35 different lake associations. Sorry, not lake, road associations. Some roads, 88 people on the road. Other roads, 5 or 6. But every one of them are organized in order to clear snow and that kind of stuff. There's also lots of people that live on municipal roads that aren't not private roads, so they have a different idea, different interests in what the lake should do for them. So try to get all those together, along with 3 different municipalities and Carlton Place. Carlton Place takes its water from the lake for drinking. So, and everything that we do here goes through Carlton Place. So the 4 municipalities have some vested interest in what's going on with the lake. So as a lake association, it makes all the sense in the world to put together a plan to try and collate all this stuff together. Next slide, please. I'll give it back to Rob because he was the implementer head and also the developer head of the plan.
Thanks for that. The journey. The Lake Community Survey, which I'm going to be talking to some of the bullets along here, had 2 key benefits. Identification of what the community thought was important, e.g. water quality, boating safety, water levels, and the generation of a list of names, email addresses, and phone numbers of potential volunteers. That list was key to contacting many individuals who ended up participating in the lake planning process. And I can remember more than one Sunday afternoon picking off 20 names and just calling them up and having a nice chat with them. And it was quite interesting. And managed to get a few people to come to the big meeting that we had. It was actually when the Conservation Authority just opened up their new office. So I tried to use that as a, kind of an incentive to get people to come and see it. The other point that I wanted to address was that the in-person public consultations were very helpful in allowing resident points of view to be expressed and considered in the plan. Randy French and Gord Rogers helped lead these efforts. And Randy, if you ever met him, was very vivacious, full of life. He always had chocolates in his hand to dole out if anybody asked a question. And he was an excellent leader.
You don't have any?
What's that?
You don't have any?
No, I don't. I didn't bring any chocolates. They tend to melt in my pockets. Okay. Next slide, please.
Sorry, I was laughing too much.
The journey continued. All right. Mississippi Lake Today report was meant as a baseline and a key topic list for areas such as surface water quality, aquatic vegetation, or weeds, flooding, fishery, land use and development, boating and recreation, groundwater, quality and quantity, Carlton Place water system in the guise of source water protection, which we all know had, in this time frame, 2015 time frame, it was still a pretty hot topic, and climate change. And I have to thank in particular Alison Simon for working on that, because that's a 140-page document that really gave the lake plan a great jumping off point. So with the community survey results, Mississippi Lake Today report, public consultation results in hand, and years of experience doing lake plans, Gord Rogers was the primary lake plan author. It is a grade A lake plan that includes all the reference information as well as recommended actions in a highly readable format. It still is quite relevant today. Lake plan implementation. It was our attempt to transform the lake plan into an action-oriented series of committees. In truth, efforts have ebbed and flowed since the adoption of the lake plan. Success depends on the availability and motivation of volunteers, which, as we all know, can be a challenge. Our efforts and successes can be found in the 2021 version update of the lake plan, which includes a report card that details the activities undertaken associated with all of the goals and actions. And I believe Andre has a hard copy of that. And
44 pages, but
yeah.
and progress charts.
Next slide, please. I just want to mention some of the contributors in particular to this effort. And I've already mentioned Allison's name, but she was, I consider her to be the prime mover for the lake plan. Without her encouragement and incredible contribution of the Mississippi Lake Today report and ongoing support, it would not have happened. So she made an incredible contribution. And also Barb Kane of Watersheds Canada was an invaluable supporter with financial assistance and guidance throughout the project. So I haven't seen Barb for a while, but please pass my good wishes along as well. Okay, so the resultant lake plan 2015. In a nutshell, these are the overall goals of the plan inspired by the old adage, if you can't measure it, you can't manage it. Interestingly, many of the goals, objectives, actions have turned into programs like the Water Rangers water sampling testing effort, as well as the annual loon count. In 2016, again with Watershed's guidance, the MLA undertook the Love Your Lake project, which was an opportunity to make progress in many areas: citizen education, further analysis of the condition of the shoreline, and importantly, the maturation of the newly inspired Lake Plan volunteer team. It was a gigantic undertaking. Andre and his dear wife spent days in municipal offices gathering the requisite information from the entire roll of taxpayers so that we could send out letters to every one of them, because that was part of the preparation to do that Love Your Lake program. And for those that don't know what that exactly is, it's essentially a complete shoreline analysis. And we had staff from Watersheds come, and we provided the boat, and they would go out and go by, 20 houses or 20 cottages in a day, and take photographs and do an assessment of each property and classify it in their, I think it's a 4-grade classification as to how natural it is versus how hard the shoreline is, etc. And then an individual report was written for every one of the properties and put on a database. And then we circulated, again, through snail mail in those days. And they got the code to go in and look and view their particular report. So, and we also had an evaluation of the entire shoreline in terms of its natural versus unnatural status, whether it's eroded, etc. One of the fortunate things with Mississippi Lake is that it was, turned into a recreational lake many years ago, but there are some provincially significant wetlands and actually a national bird sanctuary at one end that protect it, because all of the building lots have pretty much been filled in many, many years ago, but it's kept a reasonable balance on the lake. Okay, just continuing on, other activities or projects that have been a result of the Lake Plan effort. One of them of note was something called the Mississippi Lake Ecological Modeling Project. And this is part of a press release from the MBCA dated November 30th, 2017, which reads, Dr. Nader Nakai, who recently completed his PhD in civil engineering at Queen's University, will undertake the project. Quote, the main focus of this project is to use an acclaimed and peer-reviewed hydrodynamic and biogeochemical model to address water quality issues on Mississippi Lake. The model, CAD-CAM, has been used to conduct research on a range of water bodies, from small stormwater ponds in Edmonton to Lake Erie and Lake Ontario. By calibrating this model with the existing data, we will be able to predict the situation of the lake with a variety of different scenarios, such as land use, climate, and flow conditions. If you're interested, there are more details about this project and the results on the website. But Natter was able to create a model using this technology, and we supplied all of the data, sampling from 15 different streams around the lake, streams that tributaries of Mississippi Lake, as well as other sampling areas. And the idea was to be able to predict with this model what the future was in terms of algae, in particular blue-green algae. And the plan. Okay, to sum up. As I mentioned earlier, the Mississippi Lake Plan is an excellent one. In our view, it could serve very nicely as a model for any lake association's plan. In the early stages of our lake plan project, I can still remember asking to see an example plan to help me understand, what's it all about? This one is still very relevant today. Please have a look and get inspired. Okay, Andre.
Next slide, please.
Yeah, just on our homepage, right on the homepage, there's a button to get you right to the lake plan with some of the history we talked about this afternoon, and those documents. So, and anytime you want more information, we're happy to share what we went through. So, next slide, please. The benefits. Well, hopefully the benefits suit the purpose and vice versa. They're not in any particular order, but I thought since they do splash over each other, we'll just go through them what they are there. And we did create, not necessarily create, but we certainly strengthened our social community around the lake. 35 different road associations. Some people don't care at all what we were doing, and some were very much interested. A major part of the thing is to actually start talking to the community and almost treat the community as a community as opposed to the 35 separate little enclaves. It also increased our membership. We're not at the level we want to be, but we're 5 to 550. We're over 50%. We'd like to be more. It also increased since people knew what we were trying to do. Volunteers started coming up, and certainly putting lists of volunteers at AGMs and town halls we're holding. We certainly get some, not a lot. Yeah, I think that's the experience of a lot of us here. We don't get a lot of volunteers, but more than zero certainly helped. And we build a cooperation in that fashion, so that when we start talking and putting out newsletters and things, people are not anxious, but they know it's coming and they're interested in hearing what's the next news for them. It was a lot easier to align our efforts with the partners when MVCA and Watersheds, even the communities, the municipal councils, we were able to say, yeah, we're working towards the same thing. And look, it's in our plan. The comments about the municipal plan or the official plan, we're working on some of those are the actions of our plan too, is to work at the 3 municipalities, maybe 4 with Carlton Place, to get some of the things that our 1,200 members think are important into the official plan. Maybe not as a separate annex, but certainly our input into those plans is what we're starting to do. Volunteers, people, HR, human resources, and money are always going to be the 2 major sources of our resources that we're going to need to do anything. And it helps a lot if you know where you're going and people will follow you, because it's not just out of curiosity, they know that you're actually going to try and do something. Plus, they're willing to either donate money or, in our case, instead of just going for membership fees to fund all this, are there other sources of funding that we can go to? And certainly applying for grants and things like that, if you're already organized, you have a plan, you can say, here, I'm going to do A, B, C, this is why. It makes it a lot easier to apply and get grants. And as I say, credibility, one of the purposes is when you talk to Beckwith Council or DNE, North Emsley Council, and you go, we want this to happen, or we'd like this to happen, can we discuss this with you? It makes it a lot easier. Has become a lot easier to talk about. We have a private roads equalization subsidy program that Beckwith started years ago, mainly because the Lakes Association was putting the effort there on behalf of its members. We're trying to do the same thing, or parallel the same thing with Drummond North Elmsley, and that is progress on. It's slow and it's going, but without that kind of plan and that sort of predetermined sort of priorities of what we want to do, it makes things a bit harder. Lessons learned or points to consider when you're building or redoing your plan. For those who have the plan already, this is going to be maybe old news. For those who do not have a plan, I certainly think that some of these are the most important lessons to learn about the thing. You have to manage perception. People will think you've got ulterior motives in this world with everybody on social media having 6 opinions about things. Everybody's going to have different ideas of what you're doing. You have to manage that. You're not going to solve all the problems of the lake. You're not an authoritative figure on the lake, so there's a lot of things that need to be done that you're just a facilitator, and you're not the executor of those things. So that's a big part of it, is manage perception. You're always going to get a misconception of what you're trying to do. And it's honorable intentions, but people don't understand that and are going to fight you. So we found that, not in spades, but thick enough. Realistic goals. We're going to stop climate change on our lake. No. So ulterior motives, lofty goals are great. They're fun to talk about, but you have to boil them down to practicalities on things that are not only realistic, but achievable within your own resources. So those goals that you saw and the actions we have, a lot of it is inform and educate, which is probably the strongest thing you can do as a lake association, as opposed to going out and enforce. You can't do that kind of stuff. So that's part of the thing is people have got lofty ideas, but you got to have a dose of reality about what you're really able to accomplish. You can't do it. Rob has been a workhorse in this thing. We've had 3 or 4 people who are being on our board and have since left, but it can't just be the board of directors of 5, 6, 7, 8 people doing it all. You got to recruit people, and it's an ongoing issue. But if you've got a plan and you've got a bit of enthusiasm about it, you will attract people to say, yeah, you guys know what you're doing, I'd like to help you. Seek professional assistance. So I've been told that a lot. I'm not sure if they meant personally or for the MLA, but guys like French planning services and all that, who know this, they've done very excellent jobs for us in our particular case. You may have people who, a lot of us are retired. Your former job may have been middle management, may have been resource allocation. You likely have a lot of that kind of expertise within your community. But to have a group that's dedicated to that, and also with the subject matter expertise that they've built up, really helps. It's not an absolute necessity. It's certainly helped us. Several sources of funding. Our membership fees are actually quite low compared to a lot of the associations in Canada and Ontario. And we've done that partially on purpose, partially because it's hard to get people to want to pay more. But if you keep the fees low and you give a value for money to people, you sort of let them feel that you are getting quite a bit for your, in our case, $10, we've just moved up to 15. But it may not be enough.